touch. Again, step, kick, touch. Right. If y'all ever seen a chorus line? Are y'all ready for this? 5, 6, 7, 8. Y'all, if you know anything about me and John, we love music and we love musical theater. And now I'm on a chorus line kick this morning. But I think it's really relevant to work in HR. I'll tell you more about it. Hi, I'm Jackye Clayton. John is not here. And so there's the other part. I would love it if you want to join me. Today, I thought we would just talk a little bit, maybe a little bit of Ask Me Anything, a little AMA action, and we can talk about specific topics that you put in the chat. But then if anybody's passionate about any of those things, we're happy to bring you online. Just send me a text there in LinkedIn, and I'll give you the link to come join me live, and we'll be able to chat about it. So those of you who know heard that I opened up with from a chorus line. And what I love about a chorus line is it's about, if you're unfamiliar, it's a play about people auditioning to be in a musical in the chorus and getting to know these various characters, and they share various stories about growing up, what it's like auditioning, the auditioning process. And it got me thinking about the world of work because I think about that all the time, but also thinking about the world of work because there's so many people that are looking for jobs. And as people are looking for jobs, really wanting the job, really wanting to get to know people and try to do their best, put their best foot forward, but then being so nervous in that one song that's like, I hope I get it, you know, that part. And I'm like, oh, that's just so nerve wracking. Of course, they go through all of the stories, and I don't want to be a spoiler alert for those who are seeing it for the first time, but hopefully that's not that many people. Maybe you're not really sure how it ends up at the end. And so I feel like it relates to how we are at work in so many ways. First, the opening line and the closing song of a chorus line is called One singular sensation, right? And the thing, if you watch it, especially as they grew, they would have hundreds of people doing the role. And you realize that all of these people that auditioned, all of this whole play that we've been watching, and none of the originality matters. None of the school and those things matter. We try to put them in a box. And I feel like we do that at work sometimes. We put people in a box and we say, okay, we want you to come as you are. Now that you're here, we want you to come as we are. And it is so frustrating as a DEIB professional to see that when you're like, no, they have these special skills. You really have a short amount of time when you're onboarding people into the organization. And so, how can we help people be their authentic selves when they come to work? Um, the big piece, even though they might don't necessarily report in HR, is supporting our hiring managers and reminding them of those skills, but giving them somebody like an onboarding buddy that likes and appreciates them for who they are before they get I don't know what the word is, before they've been indoctrinated and been at the company for so long that they come into a company person and they forget some of the skills that got them there. So that's always really important. The other one is being open and authentic yourself, making sure that you are your true authentic self, um, and and setting that example will help other people become themselves. I think you might have seen John and I both have a shirt and it says, be yourself, they'll adjust. And I think that is true in a lot of sort of situations. The other part is to be sure if you're on the candidate side looking for a new opportunity, is making sure that you've kind of done your math and you know the organizations that you're going into. Try to find something for you. Even if it doesn't work right now, always be looking and having conversations to see if you can get closer to the job that if sometimes we know we don't have the privilege of being able to wait for the perfect job, but always be looking for that place that you think that you fit in and that it's going to be the place for you. Good morning again. Thank you, all of you, for coming and hanging out with me again solo. I would love to hang out with you. If you want to go online with me, just send me information in the messaging and I'll send you that link. I'd also love to know in the chat if you have a musical theater piece that you like. When you do that, I'll go ahead and put that on. So today, I don't know if any of you have Instagram, but John is actually in Vegas at Epic, at the new Epic conference that it just is, it's its first year and it looked really exciting. I'm going to look it up really quick, but he is there. He spoke, and I think that he is probably getting on a plane right now. Um, but this was a little bit different, the Epic HR, and it stands for Elevate People Ignite. Is it change? Something like that. I think that that's where it was. And so it was a new conference that's associated with the HR Tech Conference. And I think it really seemed to come out of people wanting to share more things about performance, about like employer brand, just different things that were related to HR. And they wanted people to not necessarily the tech side. So what they did was they had this piece. And so they some of the topics that they were talking about that were a little bit different was let's see, optimizing talent health, employee listening programs, mental health conversations, tackling social well-being. Um, and they had really a lot of information about developing talent. I've got news, friends. Oh, good. Jamie's here. I've got news. The world of HR has changed. It's just not the same anymore. And you really have to get in there. And it's not your mama's HR department. And so it's really important as you get those things together and you understand the world of work today that you go. They even had that you go, that you're learning and you got your education so that you can help people in today's workforce. Mental health has been a large piece, but we're seeing so many people preparing the conversation. It's also why DEIB is so important, is because we're trying to get people to understand that it's okay to be different. Everybody's different. Let's talk about those things and have those conversations. You don't want to have to talk about mental health when somebody is having a mental health crisis. That is not the good time. We have to be able to practice and see exactly if, how we can be better for our organizations. I feel like it's been such a huge challenge. More recently, I don't think that we're back to where we were pre-COVID. I still think we're trying to figure out um, what our purposes are and how we can show up and what our roles within HR is going to be. I know that we at Textio, where I work, have just came out with a new performance management um, product that can help you write better performance management or better feedback. Let me know if you're interested in getting a sneak peek at that. But it's because so often, part of, in, at least in part, we don't know how to say what we want to say, right? So we either don't say it at all or we risk saying it in the wrong way. Now, we like to say, oh, bring a culture ad, but there's still laws and compliance that we have to work with. And so if you're not sure, you don't want to just send people out into the world. And how many of you audit your feedback? You really audit and look at all the performance reviews and use them to make sure that they're fair. How many of you make sure every employee is going through the same experience at work? And then, even more interesting, something that I heard the last week was, how many of you had a consideration that somebody's mental health or um, disability could be affecting their work performance, and it can be potentially alleviated with an accommodation? Those things are true. I think that I was talking with a group of HR folks, and I got really bummed out because they were talking about how so often, if you have a performance review, you have to put somebody in a performance plan. They will often come back with an accommodation request. And oh, why does that happen? Like, it actually came, like, which came first? And the truth of the matter is that once you, when you have a performance plan or a PIP, it really wakes people up to, hey, this is something of this is not working out. I'm not showing up in a way that is valued, or there's something missing from my performance, and my employer is needing something else. It doesn't always, it doesn't mean that there's a problem with the person. It just might not be the right environment. But oftentimes too, the issue is we didn't set the expectations right in the first place. And so we go through life, you have your one on ones, you talk back and forth, you accept mediocrity, or maybe the person even does even more work than they're expected because they're nervous. They're nervous that they're not going to, let me plug this in. Sorry, guys. They're nervous that they're not doing well. So then they get nervous and do so much work. They start putting all the things together, they overwork. And then from there, you're like, oh crap, I got to do a quarterly review. Uh, it's like, so many people, when you talk to managers, will say, oh, I do it over the weekend, or I do it at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday, and I just finish at 10 o'clock at night on Sunday before I have to get my performance review. And when you read it, I often joke and say that they look like middle school. They look like middle school yearbooks where it's like stay cool or stay never change. Um, and the worst feedback that you could give somebody is, hey, you're doing a great job. And I was guilty of that too. When I started in the business, I really was guilty of thinking I was giving any feedback and that it was good feedback. And I realized, especially as we started working on this product, it's hard being on all the time. And so I like that you can have a little bit of a nudge. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your comment about HR being conflicted and dealing with the intersection of feelings versus facts. True. Another thing many of you have heard me say is that people don't get into HR because they like people. People get into HR oftentimes, they started liking people, but they stayed because they like compliance and that piece. And I mean, Mark and I are around the same age, so we're come from the old school. And I hate being in those conversations where it's like uphill both ways when I was a young lad or blah 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 blah. And but we didn't talk about anything. Like, you obviously know that we never talked about religion. You never talked about politics. That has flipped on its head, and we have organizations talking about politics, asking for a stance. Where does my company rate? What am I putting my work towards? That is just one piece. And then you have now where it's like we are opening up. And back in the day, you definitely didn't talk about mental health. Like, that definitely wasn't something that was happening at work. And now we know, especially during COVID times, it's like our organizations had to give more to our employees to take care of them. And maybe it was out of all of those years where we didn't have those conversations. Um, and it is mandatory that we look at the whole work and give them options for things that happen outside of work because that affects their daily production. Um, and then the other part is, especially when behavior has changed, I think there's also a fear of I, if I had a problem with my employee or my employee was showing up in a way that wasn't expected, it was because of me. And so I don't want to talk about it. Hey, Tammy, I like that. Congratulations, Tammy, on your new job. I saw that. We have to have coffee soon. I just saw Tammy again. We never hang out in town. I always see Tammy when I'm out of town. Um, but yeah, mental health equals I can't do my job. That's the way a lot of these things manifest, and we're not telling people the resources that they have. But it's really an important piece of our job. And when we're doing our performance review, we want that time to stick to the performance, make sure that they have their accurate job description and they're actually doing what's necessary for the job. Like, talk about the behavior and not the person during those performance reviews, right? Like, what's happening, or I see that you're coming in late. I do all these things. And like I said, especially for women, a consideration is that if you are autistic or on the autism spectrum, a lot of women don't find out until their 30s, y'all. I am not making that up. I am not making that up. And we have these little words and cute, like the misogyny of it all, like, oh, it's all about drama and women are so dramatic. Sometimes that's somebody's is telling you that they're anxious, that they have anxiety issues. And you think it's the drama, but no, that's how it manifests. And then as these things don't get looked at, they can show up at work in a different way. And the person in your employee, they might not even notice that there's a change. And you, as their boss, it's important that you share the information with what you've noticed, the things that are great, the things that aren't going great, so that they can get better as employees. When you have that moment, have the opportunity, take the opportunity to remind them of the benefits that you have, that you offer for all employees, and explain why. you know if they give a stipend for learning and development, remind them of their stipend for learning and development. Maybe they can take a class. Maybe there's a podcast that would work really well for them that can help benefit. There was actually an article in Harvard Business Review that came out recently that was talking about giving employees, instead of putting people on a PIP, giving them the option to leave the organization. If you have seen that before, they said that even if our employees review, the majority of them are going to leave your organization anyway after being put on a PIP. Have y'all heard that before? So you go through the process, you put somebody on a performance review, and those are hard, a performance plan. Those are really hard because you have to have all of the documentation. You're putting all those words together. You're trying to come up with the actual plan. You're meeting on a more regular basis, and you want them to do well. But have a heart to heart to see if the reason that they aren't doing well is because this is not the right place for them, and see if that is what's necessary. Maybe there's another opening if you're a large enough company that offers internal mobility. Having a real honest conversation with your employee can help them get to the places where they need to go. And yes, I just actually popped something in my mouth on camera. I like what Tammy said. Like, not only have I heard it, but I've seen it. My take is that because we don't do a good job before, before it gets to the point where an employee needs to go on a performance review. If we haven't done a good job before, we don't do a good job before that point to really identify the root cause and needs. Yes. And we need to be having regular conversations. Feedback doesn't have to wait until your performance review. You should have a certain element of feedback as often as possible. When you say, I want to give some clarification, and thanks, Tammy, for putting that in there. But if I back up a minute, I said the worst possible for feedback that you can give somebody is by saying, hey, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing. The reason that is so hard, identifying exactly what behavior or what progress is working. Share with them, this has helped impact the bottom line. How did this impact the business? Be specific. Really appreciate you taking the keeping it updated and presenting the results at the meeting. I really appreciate it. It makes a big difference and allows us to be more efficient and share our benchmarks with the rest of the organization. So then they not only know exactly what you liked, you also help them with the impact. Everyone's looking to make impact. And there's some people that leave organizations because they feel like they're not making the impact. And part of that is because nobody told them if they're making the impact. It's really important that we do that. So I'm taking this, I'm going to put this in while I take a sip of coffee. I love it. That's, gosh, I never even thought about that, Mark. 5 minutes every other week is 20 plus touch points in a year. And I know he's not saying just take 5 minutes, but he's saying it doesn't take a whole lot just to get those things in there and keep talking to our employees and seeing what's going on. The other part is that it helps you as a manager help with various skills or give them access to various projects that are going on that can help them with their personal needs as well. But I feel like so many times, like it's stressful. We're going to work. How many of you have thought that you were going to get fired at work for no reason? Like you just thought, oh my God, I think I'm getting fired. A coworker, I think I'm getting fired. And they're like, why? I don't know. I just have a feeling. We've talked, we're not going to bring up bias right now. We know what it is. But it's like most of the time it's because you can't tell if your work is working. And so that's why it's so important that we get in there, give the feedback. And if your boss is not giving you feedback, you need to require feedback. Sometimes managing up can be exhausting. I know that. Steven, you're going to have to join on with me. I will, I know that if you are, now look what Steven threw me all off. Now I forgot everything I was saying. I'm going to send you a link so you can jump in on me. Steven and I used to do a podcast together, by the way, back in the day. And so I'm going to make him a hop on here with me. He can catch us up and talk about. And by the way, the other funny part is me and Steven used to like literally talk every day. Back in the day, we used to talk every day. So I'm excited for him here. And when you get on, I will allow you in here. I sent you a link on LinkedIn. So, sorry, I got distracted, but when I go here, the worst feeling is when your boss schedules a meeting with no title on the meeting request. Yes, anxiety sets in. It's horrible. I don't know if LinkedIn user Kate, Rachel Kitty Couples is here. She reported to me, and one time I was getting surgery, and I had to. She knew I was out. I really didn't talk a lot about my surgery that was going on, and I remembered something like at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I sent her an email with no subject line at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's talking about some of the requests that I did. I think she was like, because that is the worst for me is waking up to an email or Slack message from my boss. I absolutely panic. And especially if I haven't had any feedback recently, or I'm not really sure what's going on, or if there was any changes that's been going on, because that happens too. So we'll have that piece. Also, I would love to know for those that are here, how often do you do performance reviews? And do you do them quarterly? Do you do them once a year? And how often are people getting feedback? If you're not sure what works best for your team, or you don't have you do it once a year, it's probably a good time to check back in and see if how people like to get their communication. And like I said, I will put a link for Textio, but the other part is just if you know about the performance review, use some kind of tool to make sure that you're doing well and that the performance reviews that you're giving are actually helpful. Don't wait until it's too late or you have someone that needs a performance review in order to find out, to tell somebody about what's going on or to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful. Thanks, LinkedIn user. Who I don't know who I. Just so you know, I use Restream, and when you have a chat, there's a thing that says, "Oh, I'm gonna help add people," and if you don't do it, if you don't click that link, it comes as saying LinkedIn user. Steven's here. Are you ready for me to bring you in, Steven? I can see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, Jackye. How are
Holy
you?
moly! We used to do a podcast, Steven.
Long time
Like
ago.
it was a long time ago. How are you doing?
I had a full head of hair back then. I'm very well, thanks.
And I didn't have a full head of hair back
No, your hair's lovely now.
then.
Not that it wasn't lovely then, but it's fabulous now.
You are, I'm so happy to see you. It's been forever. I used to
Yeah,
have, a work that didn't require that much work, job that requires lots of work. And so we
yeah,
used to like chat every
long
day.
hours.
How are you doing?
I'm exceptionally well. I'm I have nothing to complain about. And I love to complain. I have zero to complain about. So I'd be very rude if I had anything to moan about. Everything is great in the world.
Well, I would love to know because I've been
Yeah.
talking about feedback and all that stuff and talking about performance reviews. What is the best piece of feedback you've ever gotten?
Uh, I suppose the best piece of feedback I ever got was it's probably best that you pursue your endeavors elsewhere. Uh,
Awesome.
Actually, no. So the very last proper job that I had was in 1993, and I went in to hand in my resignation from a recruitment agency I worked in at the time. So 31 years ago, and uh, I was doing fairly well at the time, and they were a bit shocked, and they said, "So, why do you want to leave?" And they were obviously set to talk me out of it. And of course, there were two owners of the company at the time. One was talking to me, and the other one was going through my drawers to see if there was any evidence of malfeasance at the same time.
Oh my
I'd
gosh.
I'd cleared everything out of my drawer 2 days beforehand because you never resign and have anything in your desk that you might want to hang on to. So I'd cleared everything out. But I was asked, so how do we change the situation? How do we get you to stay? And I said, well, to be honest, what I want is what you've got. You own this company, you run this company, and frankly, I'm jealous of you. And you've shown me the way. So unless you're going to give me a bit of the company, then I have to go. And that kind of shut the whole discussion down. So in terms of
Mm.
feedback, the only thing that he said to me then, he said, one piece of advice: once you become an employer, once you have staff working for you and it's your company, then you also become their social worker. So their problems become your problems as soon as you own a company and start hiring staff and paying wages. The second bit of advice was remember that when it comes around to paying salaries at the end of the month, they get paid first, you get paid last. So if there's no money left, you don't get anything. and if there's lots of money left, you get lots. But that's how it works when you go to be self-employed.
I love that. I think that's really good advice. It's funny that you said that about just even starting and working for yourself and starting those endeavors. You're a serial entrepreneur with a million great ideas. Um, when you're looking into those pieces, so many people hide behind organizations that need to leave so they can start their own businesses.
Yeah,
And it's like it's almost like you want everybody to be responsible for a team at least once so they can have a
yeah.
little bit of empathy or understand what that's like.
I was speaking with a friend of mine yesterday who had a really valued staff member resign, and she felt quite hurt by it. Not that the person was resigning or leaving, but she hadn't shared that she was thinking about leaving or that she was going for interviews. And of course, as a manager, if you're close to your staff, and you shouldn't always be their best friend, but it's good to be on good terms. But when someone leaves and it's clear that they've been keeping this a secret from you, then you can feel the pain of that. But of course, by necessity, when people are looking for a job, they have to be discreet about it, and they don't owe you the information ahead of time that they're thinking about
That's
going
right.
elsewhere, because part of the process, part of the leaving a company is leaving the manager, and the inference is that you don't want to work for that person anymore, or you want to go elsewhere, and it's a tricky thing to navigate. So recruitment by nature is a discrete process. When you're starting to look for jobs, you have to be the company person at the same time as looking for something elsewhere. So you feel conflicted. You feel like a bit of you're being sneaky.
Well, I think what you're saying too is like that's why it's so important that you have regular conversations. I feel bad because it says, like, you're right, you have to be discreet, but at least if I knew, hey, this person is looking for more money with like different opportunities, then it's not as
Yeah.
much as of a shocker. And
Mm.
you know, I I get baffled by so many people, the company is struggling,
Yeah.
and then they're hear the person say something like, "Are we still getting raises, or is this piece happening?" And you're like, "Dude, are
Well,
you
duh.
listening?" Like there's a disconnect of explaining your role in the company and how we figure these things out and what we need to do in order to be successful and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's everybody works for a paycheck. Nobody works for free. I'm not saying that, and I
Yeah.
don't work for a nonprofit. But if you aren't having these conversations of transparency,
Mm.
because so many people are like shocked, and then if they weren't part, they're looking for the same thing. It's like understanding the way
Yeah.
business works. I feel like they need
Yeah.
to have a like. Remember how like when you were in school, and I don't know if you had this, but there was like the day, like you could take home economics.
Yeah.
Did you have home economics when you were in school?
Oh,
Like
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that we used to
My
learn.
friend was terrible.
I don't even know if they have home economics. We learned how to fix a sock, sew on a button, make a bowl of spaghetti,
Balance a
properly
checkbook.
set a table, balance a checkbook, like
Yeah.
how to manage a home,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
No, no, I don't think that happens. There are so many things that happen in school that you would think surely a bit of home economics would be a big benefit right here.
Because you have a panic, and it's like we don't talk to people about work, how work works, how
Mm.
these things figure out. I'm noticing I have an open VP of sales role, and I work for a mission driven company,
Yeah.
and it is interesting the people that reach out don't talk about the mission. They'll say they're great, and you
Mm.
go on their resume, they've never sold anything ever in their life.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, let me explain how this works. I mean, I'm sure you're great. Let me tell you how you can sell yourself into an organization that
Yeah.
might be look, or how you could. I'm not saying they're not qualified and I won't talk to them, but if
Mm.
I'm just going on what's on paper, telling me that you're the best person for the job is not enough to get the interview if it's not obvious. Like, I need to tell you how to sell yourself.
Yeah. what always surprises me in the recruitment sector, either in staffing agencies or in TA, is so many people who are unaware of how recruitment works, and they take it personally when things happen, and they're surprised when someone decides to leave and go elsewhere. Like that would be the last thing they would imagine. Well, it's the world of work. People leave. You've left before and gone somewhere else, and
That's
you had a
right.
boss that was surprised. So when companies don't plan for recruitment to happen, for vacancies to, for turnover of staff, then frankly, they get what's coming to them. And what that means is that they have a distress purchase. They need to hire someone in a hurry because they had no idea this job was going to be coming available. They hadn't thought about, well, what do we do if Joe or Mary or whoever leaves the company, or and goes elsewhere, or goes under a bus? Do we have a succession plan? Do we have a pipeline of people that are coming through that can take this job either internally or externally? Do we know what the going rate is for people in this market? So yeah, it shocks me how little people are aware of the world of recruitment and what is going through people's minds and the motivations at the point at which they're thinking about jobs elsewhere.
That's right. And I'll tell you, true story. I
Yeah, yeah.
worked for an organization. I used to sell software for like a hot minute, and I was like, sales is not for me. I know people think that conversation. No, I'm an opener. I'm not a closer like that. Like it's not my primary focus.
Yeah,
Um, not my. I could, Anyway, we'll have another conversation about that. But
yeah,
when I was working, I am a person who takes things very literal. So if you say, "Hey, your quota is $1 million. If you can't stay here unless you make $1 million," then
yeah.
I started looking at my way out. I was at the organization. I had $1 million quota. I had sold about 945,000,
Wow.
and I started looking for another job because it was
Yeah.
like they were hammering and they talked about it all the time. And when I
Mhm.
left, the person that I worked for was so
Yeah.
upset that I was leaving. And what I found out was like that was the stretch goal. They never expected anybody to reach $1 million. And they were saying those things for the other stuff. And then they wanted me to stay. And I was like, for the past year, I thought I was going to get fired any second because I
So
wasn't, and I
could
knew
they
it was
have
going to be
told you
difficult.
at some point through the process, turns out you're a great salesperson. We really value you. We want you to stay. You're good at this. And you would have to yourself said, maybe I'm good at this. Maybe I do like this. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
do more of it.
If they would have
Yeah.
said, like, we know this is your first year selling software, everybody's
Yeah.
quota is the same, but we know right now you're not tracking. Like you see it and I see it. I know right now you're not tracking to make it, but I know that you will be able to make that in your second year. So we're gonna start now
Yeah.
to try. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do to get the million this year. And if we,
Yeah.
just let me know that you're seeing and that we're working on it.
I saw a report recently that it was for the UK, so I'm not sure how it applies to the US. I think there's a lot less imposter syndrome going on in the US. I'm pretty sure, but in the UK, people much more commonly will leave a job rather than have a hard conversation with the manager about their prospects, their salary, the responsibilities. They won't have the hard conversation, but they will find a job elsewhere rather than having that conversation, which is
Dang.
bizarre. Yeah.
I think that's the same. No, I don't think. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of the opposite of imposter syndrome where people are like,
Yeah.
"I'm the shit," like where it's the wrong kind of imposter where you're like, you're literally not working.
If I'm honest, that's always been me. I've never had imposter syndrome. I'm thinking I totally deserve to be here. Look at me.
Of course, you're like, what? I remember we had family therapy. This is funny. I'm the youngest. My sister's 10 years older than me, and my brother's 5 years older than me. And
You're the baby.
we went to family. Yeah, I'm the baby. We went to family therapy, and my brother said I was spoiled, and the therapist said, "Well, spoiled implies that you've received something that you didn't deserve." And I was like, "I deserve everything I've gotten." And my brother was like, "See, she's spoiled." I thought it was so funny. But I was naive. I was naive in doing that. But I think that like so many times we're afraid. I have this book. I've been working on it with my team. It's called Crucial Conversations. And I like it. Oops. I like it because it's talking about how to talk when the stakes are high, right? When you know you're going to have a difference of opinion,
Hmm.
when it's really, really important that you have the conversation
Yeah.
and it's about something that is a potentially heated topic or whatever. And it shows you, I've had to use it so many times. It's helped with the imposter syndrome too,
Yeah.
um, where I've used it to say, and because I hate it when people tell me assume positive intent. I hate it when people tell me that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
When they're like, and I'm like, that isn't safe for me. But what is helpful is remember to state the point of what you're both trying to do.
Yeah.
I think that's what people mean when they say if it's good intent, right? Because it's like me saying, Stephen, you and I both work here. We both
Yeah.
want the company to be successful, right? Like, let's just start with the
We'll do it.
benchmark, or maybe not. Yeah, and they'd be like, no, I hate this place.
So very early on in work, and I had a bunch of sales jobs before getting into recruitment at 21. So I'd sold fax machines before they were fashionable. I sold cable TV at people's houses, and I sold advertising on the phone. But I have to mind my phone here because people don't know that's how you hold a phone.
Right. Yeah, like that.
Doesn't you don't hold a phone like a slice of
Not
pizza.
like this. No.
That's terrible, you know.
Yeah, you do.
But I learned very early on that you if you walk towards the problem rather than away from the problem, then you get things resolved. And whenever I was hiring people, then I'd look for people who walk towards the problem and they don't, put it under the carpet or go in the other direction. You showed a book there. I'm going to grab a book myself. This very similar. Talking to Strangers, Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
so I love my motto might well be something about talking to strangers. I love talking to people that I don't know because I'm firmly of the view that strangers are just friends that you haven't met yet, and there's so much more interesting than the people you already know. So, whenever I've been interviewing people, then I'm digging into their stories. I'm finding out all about them, and it's almost always really fascinating. But talking to strangers, having hard conversations, bringing up things that you might otherwise shy away from, almost always works out well.
Yeah. By the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I love your glasses, Stephen.
Well, I knew I had to bring my glasses game if I was going to be coming on with you because you are the. Can I just show you on the side of my desk here? I have I have a handful of spectacles
Ah!
because I need to be properly accessorized at all times.
Yes.
These ones you're like these are Van Gogh specs
Look
from
at
the.
that.
I got those in Amsterdam last month from the Van Gogh Museum. They're fabulous.
Those are, I want to go to the Van Gogh Museum. All I have are bubbles. They're all
I
in
need
the
to get
other.
more. I need to get more of these ones. These are my favorites. I got these in Venice last year, and they won't deliver to Scotland. So I need to go back to Italy to
Are you
get more of these.
serious?
Yeah.
Listen, I tell you what, the other day, literally, this has never happened. Like, I forget sometimes that I have glasses on in the shower, or sleep with my glasses on. That stage of life. I didn't start wearing glasses until I was like 45 or so,
You're not
maybe
even
earlier.
45. Shut up.
Oh, come on. I'm 51.
Shh, shut the front door.
I know. Know it. And I had these I fall asleep with glasses. So, and I have a pair everywhere. If this is your first time meeting me in my glasses, you will see a
Hmm.
different pair of glasses almost every time you see me. But in the living room, and the other day I left and I didn't have glasses on.
Yeah.
It was the most uncomfortable experience. And someone sent me a text and they said, "What's your wrist size?" But I didn't have my
Hmm.
glasses, and I said 33 inches.
Did
And
you
they
think
put
they
it
meant
in
bust
all
size?
caps. They must have known that because they put it in all caps. They were like, wrist, not. waist. I was like, oh, hold on. I couldn't read it because I didn't have my glasses on.
Oh
Oh,
dear.
well, I love that. I think that I think that you're really right. I just hate that some of this stuff can be solved with just one accommodation, with either an accommodation or conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to backtrack a little bit
Yeah.
because we can't assume that everyone is comfortable talking to strangers. You know, in London, for example, if I sit down on the tube, I'll speak to the person next to me. I'll ask, "So where are you going?" And often they'll jump out of their skin. But that's that's kind of a London thing. But not everyone is comfortable with it, and a lot of people, frankly, would run a mile. And we don't want to force people who are not comfortable doing that to have to do that. So if
No.
we can find other ways in which they can have the hard conversations without crossing the line they don't want to cross. So and that might be messaging in different ways. It might be putting sending an email and being as diplomatic as possible, but broaching the subject. We want people to have the courage to do it, even if they avoid doing the face-to-face thing, because not everyone is wired in that way. And I know I'm unusual in that sense, but there are plenty of people out there who don't want to have to do that, and they might end up leaving a good job or a job that could be improved
Yes.
simply
Yes.
because they couldn't have the conversation.
I have to tell you, I know people. Nobody believes me when I tell them this. I used to travel a lot, um,
Hmm.
and people talk to me on planes, and everyone says, "No, Jackie, it's you. You talk a lot. I know you talk." No, I promise. I think I have a kind face. People will keep talking to me on planes, and I can't tell you, like, I've met a lot of people on planes, oddly enough, that became in a relationship, or a
Yeah.
friendship. But there, it is not everybody is like that. Some people are terrified, like you're saying, and
Mm.
the other part is that they're not sure how to articulate what they need to say, especially managing up. Culturally, a lot of times you're taught that's disrespectful to talk to your boss a certain way, of question.
Let me give you an example, and this will sound a bit nuts, but so my point is planning ahead. So if you need to have a conversation about something, and it might be asking for a raise, it might be asking for time off, for an accommodation one way or another at work, with your boss who you think they're not going to respond well to this, then writing it down, practicing what you're going to say, just thinking about, well, how will they respond to this, and don't always assume that they'll respond in a bad way, but
That's
just
right.
let them know, look, this is difficult for me to say. Can you give me a moment while I get this out, because I'm a bit nervous? So that sort of thing. But going way back, the story I want to tell is when I was doing telesales when I was 18, selling advertising in the local in-house police magazine. Uh, to while away the hours, sometimes I would call the States. So I'm sitting in Glasgow, I'm in my office, it's raining outside, and I'm bored. So I work out the international code for the States and for New York. So 001, whatever, 212 or whatever it is. And I would then add on random digits. So I would call people, I would cold call for friends. And whoever answered the phone, I would say, "Hello, my name's Stephen. I'm in Glasgow. I'm at my office. I'm a bit bored. I thought I'd give you a call. How are you doing?" And most people would hang up, of course. Uh, but some people you get into conversation with, and it was absolutely fascinating. So there's a couple of friends I have to this day, and we're now 40 years on, that I canvassed for friendship in New York back
Are you
in.
serious?
So there's a pal of mine called Philip Hoffman. He's an actor, not Philip Seymour Hoffman. Philip Hoffman is an actor on Broadway, and various other TV shows. And he was one of the guys. And in all those years, whenever I'm in New York, I'll go and see him. He writes, I phone. We've been in touch this entire time, and it's all on account of making a cold call to a blind number to see if I could make a friend in New York.
That is wild. That is, and the answer is, but if you don't know Stephen, Stephen is just a lovely person and very easy to talk to and a good listener and tells funny stories. When I need to come to Scotland, so I remember you telling me about that comedy show in Scotland,
Oh yeah,
and I had it like on my bucket list, and then I forgot. I have to get back into the habit of, we need to put back on our regular conversations, and then
yeah.
and then I won't forget. I won't forget.
Well, I'll tell you
Um,
what's happening in the next few weeks. Now, I'm not suggesting that you drop everything and get on a plane to Scotland, but on Tuesday the 21st and Thursday the 23rd of May, Chad and Cheese are going to be right here, and we're organising true events. So there's a true Glasgow and a true Edinburgh on those days. So they're flying over. I think they've got the
how
smell
does
of
that
whiskey in the
happen?
nostrils. Chad and Cheese. In fact, I was
Yes.
speaking with Chad just 2 minutes ago about this. So it's a true event. Chad and Cheese are turning up. They're going to go on whiskey tours to distilleries. They might play some golf. And there's a whole cluster of recruitment technology companies in Glasgow and Edinburgh. So you'll know of Adam Gordon. So Adam Gordon's new thing, poetry. So he's literally 2 miles that way. And there's a whole clutch of other companies who are making software for recruitment, whether it's assessment or gig jobs or recruitment recruitment agency CRMs and ATSs and video interviewing companies. There's a company called Odro who are literally 400 yards from me, and they are killing it in video interviewing software. So there's a whole load of recruitment tech going on, and Chad and Cheese are coming over for that, and Matt Alder is involved as well. So Matt Alder's the Recruiting Future podcast, so he'll be there as well because he lives in Edinburgh. Sorry, I'm talking too fast, aren't I?
No, I
He's in
like
Edinburgh.
it. I'm
So
just laughing because I'm like, what? I need to
if
take the chat. I need to go. Actually,
if you want to know
definitely not
more,
gonna be able to do that, but
if you want to know more, go to truscotland.com. That's TRU Scotland.com, and you'll see all the details there.
that is great. See, but I mean, literally, Stephen. I mean, how long did we know each other before we actually met in person? For like a
Oh, at
couple of
least
hours.
over a decade.
Over a
Yeah.
decade. Yeah, 10 years. And I literally have never gone out of, only twice have I gone out of the country for a recruiting conference.
You went to Barcelona that time, and I
I
didn't
went to
get to go.
Barcelona. Yeah. And so now I need to go and just see. There's a list of people that I need to meet
Hmm.
besides just getting an understanding of more about what's going on. I've been
Well,
really,
I tell you where you need to go if you can't get to Scotland, and it's short notice. I know, please come, and you can stay at mine. But if you can't get to there, then you can get to Washington DC. So in DC on June the 4th to the 6th, me and Peter Weddle are running TA Tech North America. So that's on in DC in June. It's all recruitment technology companies like Textio, and it's all CEOs and founders who are on the agenda as speakers and in the audience. So you'd be very, very welcome. It's all top people.
I'll top people. I'll have to make sure and polish my shoes.
And Washington is going to be nuts in an election year. It's going to be crack and very hot. I know you're used to hot in Texas, but
Yes.
I'm really not wired for the heat.
It's okay. You just drink a glass of water. Just wear a tank top.
Yeah.
And a fishing hat. One of those big white fishing hats. Make sure you have those things.
I got a hat in the post yesterday. You're gonna laugh. I got a mosquito net hat in the post yesterday.
No, you didn't.
I did.
Steven.
I got two because tomorrow me and Luciana are going to the Isle of Skye, and the Isle of Skye is beautiful but famous for midges or like mosquitoes.
Right.
And I'm hoping at this time of year they haven't turned up yet, but just in case, we've got the mosquito hats just in case.
I can't even imagine. I can't imagine any mosquitoes being around right now. I'd be really mad. But then I keep here. It's been really cold, so I can't tell what the weather is like. I mean, but then I have to see that hat.
Yeah, but cold for you is how cold
it's gonna
is
be
cold?
80 degrees.
Yeah.
Today Fahrenheit. So
that's
what is that?
pretty toasty.
I mean, it's supposed to be 85, 90. This is what happened when I got married. It was like this weather was just 80, and then the week after it was the hottest day on record.
I would burn in 80 degrees, frankly. I'd
really
look at this. I've got too much forehead. Not as much as John Baldino, but
I will tell you, when I had alopecia, it was one of the funniest things. He was like, "Welcome to the club." It was just like whoop, all the bald heads would be able to do that.
You really rocked it, I have to say.
I did it for a while.
there's always the thing, and obviously it's maybe more men than women, but there's always the thing when you're thinking, what's going to happen when my hair goes? Do I have a funny shaped head? Will I
Yeah.
look all right? So it's a bit of a revelation when it turns out that your head's okay and it's been all right all along.
My head is huge. I just
You
got
have a great,
measurements. Nobody
you have a
believes
great head. You have a
it.
great shaped head.
It is huge, but it's
Some
big.
people have a head like a lollipop.
Some of their mamas did
Yeah,
like
yeah. I don't want to shame people with oddly shaped heads, but in the discrimination stakes, that's maybe not high on the agenda.
it's not. It's not a
Not a
protected
protected
class.
class.
Yeah, not a protected class.
Jinx.
Not the odd-shaped head. But I
Yeah,
really was. I really was this past week on the Inclusive AF podcast. Like we had somebody
yeah.
that was talking about the disabilities,
Hmm.
about how some of those things people don't know that they have disabilities, and at work, how does it manifest itself, and how
Yeah,
it shows up at work,
yeah,
and things that you can do that you don't. So you like you have to get regular. You have to be part of those conversations. Like you have to start, like
hmm,
you said, but give multiple ways of having the conversation. Is it a Slack message? Is it a survey? Is it one on
yeah.
one? Is it
So
giving it?
let me ask Jackie, uh, do you have a disability or something that you're differently abled in that in some ways holds you back? I mean, obviously
Yes,
you wear glasses, so that's something.
right. That's one.
Yeah,
But also,
yeah,
like I have ADHD, and
yeah,
also part of that, it probably leads to other things. One of the things, like I said earlier, when it was very direct, and this is a true story. I put out the diversity report every year.
hmm,
My first year, Kieran, who was my boss at the time, would say, "Oh, I would really like for you to do that," and I'd be like, "No,"
yeah,
and she'd be like, "Okay," and then she'd be like, "I don't." Finally, we're like a year in, and she's like, "I don't know what I have to do to get you to write this report." Like I didn't
yeah,
know. I thought this whole time she was giving me an option. Like I thought she was just letting me know her preference. Like, oh,
yeah,
you should have a soda with your chicken. And I'm like, no, thanks. I thought that's
yeah.
what was happening. And I was like, oh, what do you have to do? You have to
So
tell me,
you weren't picking
Jackie,
up on the hints at all.
at all for like a year, Stephen. And I
Yeah,
talked to her 3 times a week. I've known her for 10 years. We had to talk it for 3 weeks. And she was very clear about how she didn't always give the best feedback. And I didn't know that was it. And I was
yeah.
hurting and damaging my own career. I don't know what she thought I was doing.
With respect, I think the onus is on the manager to be more plain spoken.
Yes,
I'd like you to do this. I'd
absolutely.
like you to do this by this date, and let me know if you need any help with it.
Well, but also like now I'm in my 50s. So I can say, oh, when you say that, like, and this is what's so funny. Again, if Rachel Kitty Couples is here, the thing that was so funny with her is that I would say to her,
Uh-huh.
can when you have a moment, can we do this or different pieces? And she said, "Oh, I forgot. When you say that, that's not what you mean." Like,
Mm.
and I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "When you say, when you have a moment, that means you need me to do it right now."
Yeah, yeah.
And I was
I
like, "Oh, snap. Yeah, I do mean that."
I have three sisters, and they all are skilled in the art of inferring something and not saying it out loud. You know, and the line would often be said, "Well, if you don't know, I'm not telling you." I'm thinking, of course I don't know. You have to tell me. So,
Right.
and yeah, but managers often do the same thing, and they assume that you'll take the initiative, but you've not maybe been given, full permission to take the initiative. And if it's made more clear, look, when I say this, what I mean is that. And yeah,
It's really unfortunate. And especially like your first job, unfortunately for some people, your first job might be retail, it might
yeah,
be fast food or food service. And in those environments, they tell you exactly what to do,
yeah,
exactly the way they tell you how to dress,
the
they tell
military
you how
way.
to talk to people. And
Yeah,
so as you get older and you have different jobs and different responsibilities, they tell
Mm,
you less and less and less and expect you to know. And
mm.
so it's like, that's why, like, your manager, as a manager, you have to give feedback, but as an employee, make it your a point to get feedback, ask feedback, have those things, figure out a way to communicate. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I always think I was really difficult to manage just because, like, I never picked up on things that were implied.
I've often gotten into conversations with people where they're asking me career advice on, things to do in certain situations, and I'm a big fan of managing your manager. Knowing what makes them tick, knowing what puts them in a good mood. If they're stomping around the office with a bee in their backside about something, then how you can deflate the situation, and ways in which you can speak to them about things. So managing up. So you need to. People should, wherever they can, try and understand their manager and what makes them tick. How can you manage their expectations of you, as well as they're trying to manage you doing your job,
You know,
and pays
you
dividends.
know, I think one of the things that I do, literally, I do this, and it's a habit that I work really hard on, is that if I don't do something well, or if it's not going the way that I want it to, then I hide instead of immediately telling somebody that it's bad. And then
Yeah,
I it's like, if I broke the vase, then I would take the vase, I'd hide with the vase, I would try to, like, make it better. It's never gonna be better. It's broken. And I would try, rather than say, I broke your vase, like, I would try really hard. And now the person thinks I'm hiding from them. And then by the time, and then I've got this broken, chipped up vase. And then it's like, why didn't you just tell me? I've
yeah.
wasted so much time and had so much anxiety, from just being open and transparent. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a habit that we have.
I
Well,
like I like I like the story of someone goes on holiday and they ask a friend to look after the cat, to feed the cat, and so they get met at the airport coming back, and they say, "Is everything okay?" Well, I'm sorry to tell you that there was an accident and the house burned down and the cat died, and the person is obviously beside themselves. They're really upset. They can't take it, and after a few moments, you say, "I was only joking. The house hasn't burned down. But yes, the cat has died. Oh, thank goodness for that."
oh my
So
God.
it's a way of managing expectations by, you know, managing
Don't
the
do that.
person.
Don't do that. Well,
Yeah,
I
maybe
thank
maybe
you,
not with the
Steve.
boss.
I appreciate you so much for joining me today at the last minute.
No
We're
problem.
actually over time, but I
Um,
know it's interesting for our But First Coffee Stephen edition. It's our special edition of whatever it is we put together today. And then tell people about you, Stephen, for people who this is their first interaction.
okay, so I'm in Glasgow. I'm going to show you. So this is Glasgow outside right now. It's a bit overcast, but it's warm. It's very toasty in here. So I run TA Tech. I also run the National Online Recruitment Awards in the UK, which is this here. And I've been in this business since, well, for 36 years, on and off, either recruitment staffing firms or on the tech side of things.
And the webmaster for JackyeClayton.com.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, absolutely.
I now we have to redo all the pictures, by the way, because I've
Well, it's
lost
all
a
out of
lot,
date.
ton of weight, and have a new job. It's all out of
The
date.
hair's all wrong. The teeth are all wrong.
Yeah. We've got to get it all back together.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
again, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our millions of fans and, the Glaswegians, which we know now we're going to have millions of Glaswegians wanting to hang out all the time.
Of
So
course.
I appreciate you and appreciate everybody in the chat, and we'll talk next week.
Thank you very much. Love you to bits.